Well, thank you for being here tonight. As Ryan said, I am Ed Downs. I'm in the Department of Communication. And I have an idea that I want to talk through tonight. I believe that when it comes to our relationship with technology, that in particular our cell phones, that technology is a gamble. And I've got 3 reasons for why I think that. Number 1, technology puts us in a position where we are often frequently misunderstood. As you remember from the video, Dr. Nass said that when we see text messaging, our brains are not hardwired to interpret emotion from textual communication. Well, we've tried to find ways around that. We've created symbol systems that allow us to add context to the content. We use emoticons and emojis in order to give our content, or our context. That's all fine and that's all good. And in the main, I think most people are pretty good at it. That is, if you understand what the symbols are. I've got an example from my own history. I'm a bit embarrassed to say. Wrong way. Some of you may be familiar with this. I remember a couple years ago when this came out, seeing this eggplant is listed as one of the emoticons, and thinking to myself, boy, that's strange. Of all the fruits and vegetables, people are choosing the eggplant. There can't be a market for this. There are strawberries and grapes and other things that people like so much more. And then somebody explained to me what it meant, and come to find out, I was wrong. There is quite a market. So technology can be a gamble if we use it and we misunderstand each other. I also think technology can be a gamble because it's dangerous. One of the things that I study at UMD, I've been studying for the past about 6 years, is distracted driving. I set up simulators, and I have people pull out their cell phones, and I send text messages to them, and I tell them to keep the car on the road when they're driving in the simulator. Of course, they can't do it. And it's not just my work that shows that. There are hundreds, thousands of studies from other disciplines that are all very much in agreement. We are terrible compound continuous multitaskers. As I tell my students, if you're sitting behind the wheel of a car and you take your phone in your hand, you're also taking your life and maybe somebody else's in your hand as well. So technology can be a gamble because of the risky positions that we put ourselves in when we use it sometimes. And then there's one more way, but it requires a little bit of a kind of a preface. A couple of weeks ago on my social media, a new blitz came across from AT&T. It's a new promotion that they're doing. And it's part of their It Can Wait campaign, where they ask people to wait to send text messages until they've stopped driving. I think this is a good example of corporate responsibility. This is a good thing that they do by trying to get people to take the pledge to not text and drive or to not drive distracted. I couldn't, unfortunately, when I went back, I couldn't find the actual ad itself. I wanted to drop it into the presentation. But I do remember the statistics, and I remember what they talked about. These are the statistics that AT&T put up. They say 95% of people think that jumping into shark-infested waters wearing a suit made of meat is dangerous. Now, I know what you're thinking. I have no idea who those other 5% are. But I suppose the important part is that of those 95%, 0% would actually do it. That's probably a good thing. That's probably a smart thing. By comparison, 95% of people think that distracted driving is dangerous. And yet, 83% of those people still report doing it. This is the part that I don't understand. Because worst case scenario, in both of these conditions, wearing a meat suit and jumping into shark-infested waters and driving distracted, the worst case scenario is that you could kill somebody or you could die yourself. So the worst case scenario for either one of these things doesn't change, but the percent of people who would do it anyway does change from 0 to 83%. That's huge. And so I asked the question, why? And AT&T has an answer for that. After this bit of information flashed across the screen, one more screen came up with AT&T's answer, and they say, it's addiction. Now, I'm a scientist, and when the term addiction came up on the screen, I thought to myself, as I know there's some clinicians and psychologists in here, and I thought to myself, well, AT&T isn't using the term correctly. That's not what addiction really is. And I got to admit, I'm an academic, so I was pretty smug about it for just a couple of minutes. Felt pretty good. This is what that looks like. But then after I got over that, I started thinking about what the message was that they were trying to say. And I think they're using a more common, using the term in a more common parlance. They don't mean it like a clinician would. What they're ultimately trying to say is there's a problem. People are having a problem with their media. And that's something that I can get on board. That's something that, as a media effects scholar, that I agree with. As an effects scholar, I'm trained to look at media in certain ways. And in my own studies of cell phones and people's use of these types of mobile technologies, what I generally tend to do is I think about it like a small TV, or a small theater, or a small computer, because that's what it looks like. It's audio, it's visual, and it kind of looks like a TV or a small computer. But that's wrong. I decided that that's probably not the best way to think about what this technology does, what cell phones, and in particular smartphones, do. It dawned on me that probably a better way to think about this particular piece of technology is to think about it in the same way we would think about a slot machine. And when I started thinking about that, then a whole number of possibilities opened up. A phone as a slot machine. Why? Why does your cell phone, why does a smartphone in particular, bear more resemblance to a slot machine than a television or just a small computer? Well, there are similar mechanisms and algorithms and psychological foundations that are in place that both guide how social media apps are designed and that are used to design better slot machines. Truth be told, the phone itself is the physical manifestation of what the problem is. And when people are behind the wheel, you don't see an app, you see a phone. But the truth is, it's not the phone itself, it's the apps that people are using that make it so difficult to put the phone down. And in a study that was done by a company that AT&T hired to find out what are people doing behind the wheel, this is what they're doing. They're not just texting, although that's one of the largest things that people do. They're emailing other people. They're surfing the net. They're on Facebook. They're playing Candy Crush. This is no joke. I have worked in the past with some members from the Towards Zero Driving, the TZD Coalition in the state of Minnesota, Towards Zero Deaths on Minnesota Roadways. And the stories from the officers there, they report pulling people over playing Candy Crush on tablets and on their phones on top of their steering wheel. So some people even are reporting Snapchatting and doing video chats on FaceTime while they're behind the wheel. That's dangerous. And it's not just the texting, it's all these things. There's a reason why why this tends to work. And we take a page, we look at how video game designers are designing games today. And one of the things that slot machines and apps in general have in common is the use of something called the compulsion loop. Everyone all right back there? Cell phone, yep. It's the compulsion loop. The compulsion loop, I realize this is small, but it's a series of repetitive tasks that start with some action that is rewarded, and the reward leads to other rewards, which we anticipate going back and doing the original action again. It works in video games this way. I know from experience that this works because I play Plants vs. Zombies on my cell phone quite a bit. Any other Plants vs. Zombies players? All right, you're all in the back. I see you. Then you know exactly what I'm talking about. It all started very innocently one day when one of my friends was talking about it, so I downloaded it, and I got to kill zombies right away. It was great. And I found out before too long that if I killed enough zombies, I got rewarded for it. And this is the important part of the reward cycle here that psychologists like Skinner and others have indicated. It's not just getting the reward that's important. It's that the variable reward becomes very important, and that's what becomes addicting. Because when I kill zombies, sometimes I get gold coins, sometimes I get silver coins, sometimes I get diamonds, which are worth lots of coins, or bags of coins. And if I build up enough of those, I get to buy these plants over here. And those plants kill zombies in different ways. And that's what I wait for. And what I'm actually just doing over and over and over and over again is killing zombies, but I keep coming back because of this variable reward. I never know what I'm going to get. The same way somebody plays a slot machine. You put in the quarters, you pull the handle on the one-armed bandit, you never know what you're going to get. There is a fear that app designers know about, that we have as a public, people who use social media, and that you may have heard of the term FOMO, fear of missing out. This is one of the things that we desperately don't want to do. We don't want to feel like we've missed something. So we stay in contact. We stay in contact people whenever we have a couple minutes to sit and work with our technology. Unfortunately, that when people sit, one of the times that they check up on these things most often is behind the wheel of the car. This is a dangerous place to do that. And it's also why I start to rethink whether or not AT&T was right or wrong. I initially think, well, they're not using addiction correctly. But why would people do that? Why would people put themselves and other people in that kind of danger? Fear of missing out. App designers, there is a person right now who makes his living going around to different companies in the Silicon Valley, teaching people his own version of the compulsion loop. He calls it the hook. He's a little bit more straightforward about it. And he makes his money teaching app designers how to program apps so that it encourages compulsive behavior. And when I talk about compulsive behavior with people using their phones and apps, I get this information from my own students. They self-report this to me, that some of them are checking their phones and their social media 200, 300, 400 times per day. Now that sounds compulsive to me. And here's how they're teaching people in Silicon Valley to design apps now. You start with an external trigger. This could be very simply a friend inviting you to join Facebook or to join Twitter or to join Instagram. So you get that external influence. You take some very small action. You join, you set up the account, and then you post one quick message. Hey, I'm new here, don't know how this works. Then you start to get the rewards. You get the thumbs up. This is great. If somebody really likes you, they'll type a message. Hey, nice to see you on here. You might even get friend requests. All of these things are variable rewards. Because you get rewarded, you start to invest in your social media. You put pictures on it. You fill out the rest of the profile. You start looking for other people. And as you invest and spend more time with the app or the technology, the triggers aren't external anymore. They become internalized. What is it that people are internalizing? Well, if they spend time on their social media, they know they're not going to miss out, so they alleviate that fear. But second, they also get one thing that I don't think we do very good today. That's just validation. It becomes an internal mechanism for validation. And so people complete these very small actions in their apps, and they get those rewards, and it feels good. And it's not just the reward on social media, where they get more friends, and they get more likes, and they get more comments. There's a biological response. There's a biological reward. They get that one tiny little drip of dopamine, right? And it feels good. But it's a small drip, and it doesn't last long. In order to maintain that feeling, You've got to do it over and over and over and over and over again. That puts people into the loop. And when people are checking 200 and 300 and 400 times per day, that's the compulsion loop. And that's exactly what the designers are trying to do. They're trying to get people hooked. It's called the hook for a reason. It sucks people in, and in a lot of ways, there's not much they can do about it. I want to give you end on a kind of a high note, and give you a way to fix the fix, or the need for the fix. I will concede that there probably is a small number of people that may clinically be able to be diagnosed with an addiction. It's a small number, but it's significant. However, there are a number of people who will leave here tonight with their cell phones, and on the 10-minute drive, whichever direction you live in Duluth, will be behind the wheel. You're still going to pull out your phone. I hope you don't, but maybe somebody will. I have no doubt whatsoever that even if it's not you, that you'll see somebody at a traffic light or somewhere else that has their phone in their hand while they're driving. That much I can guarantee. Reeves and Nass, one of the things that I think we can do is to be conscious of our relationship with our technology. Reeves and Nass talked about being one up on our technology or taking control. You want to be one up to your technology, not one down. And I think perhaps Neil Postman may have said it better. And he said, basically, don't let the tech use you. If you're the kind of person who can't have their phone or who needs to have their phone in their hand while they're driving, you're being used by the technology. You've lost control. And if you have to check that 200 and 300 and 400 times per day, you're being used by the technology. I would encourage everybody here to set an example. Be the person who won't have your phone in your hand when you're in the car. Be the person to call somebody else out if you see them with their phone in their hand, to say, that's not okay. As I think back to Dr. Nass's presentation earlier, I realized that there's a sort of evil genius to the way he opened up his talk. He started with the Barney song. Now, I'm not a big fan of Barney, and the song is even more annoying. But there is a little bit of genius to his use of that song, because for weeks after I watched that talk, all I could think about was the Barney song. So you're welcome for that. So as I close tonight, I'd like you to do one thing for me. Could I get you, and I think Dr. Nass would approve, could I get you all to stand up for just 1 second? I want you to think about the message that I want you to take away tonight. I want to do it through Barney. And I would like for you, if you'd indulge me, there you go. If you'll indulge me, I'd like you to sing along with me. You already know the song. You ready? You ready? Sing as the words come up. I love you, you love me. Let's make driving cell phone free. Thank you very much.